giving, I believe, giving state business to people who did favors for him. Specifically, whom are you talking about? What business did they get, and what favors did they give?
Well, we'll talk more about that later, but.
Well, how about now? I mean, that's a pretty loaded claim, isn't it?
Well, it is a loaded claim, and we'll give you the facts to back it up at another time. But there's more than one instance of that.
Well, how about just one?
How about just one? Well, seriously, I'd rather wait on that for another time.
Back to the this exploratory thing is, take us through that. Why exploratory and why not? And does it have anything to do with your fundraising plans? You're telling us now that you may do public financing. Does the exploratory give you certain fundraising advantages that you wouldn't have with a full-blown committee? And just on those 2 points, take us through the explanation.
It does, but that's not the reason I've chosen an exploratory committee. I've chosen an exploratory committee because that's the one that's designed for people who are testing the waters and haven't made a final decision, which is what applies to me.
Tom, you not so subtly alluded to the voting irregularities here in Bridgeport at the beginning of your remarks. Do you think that there was voter fraud here in 2010?
Well, I said last time I met with a group this large, which was up in Hartford when I conceded, I said that I didn't believe that a recount would have changed the result. I believe there's voter fraud in every state and in every election, unfortunately. But a lot of voter fraud is not picked up in a recount. I think if there had been, all voter fraud had been eliminated in 2010, I would have won the election. But a recount does not pick up all voter fraud.
That was a different message than you gave on your concession. You were, most people said you were especially gracious, that you went above and beyond, and you said Governor Malloy's victory should not be questioned. It was not tainted. So you do not believe that now?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that a recount would not have changed the result.
Okay, but
So that makes it a legitimate victory. But there is, unfortunately, voter fraud in Connecticut and everywhere across the country that doesn't get picked up in a recount. So if there were no voter fraud in Connecticut, I think I would have won. But that doesn't mean that he didn't legitimately win, because we're never going to eliminate all voter fraud.
Does simply using the Citizens Election Program, if you do use it, I guess erase what some in the public would perceive as this sort of Mitt Romney image of somebody who's from Greenwich, who's a businessman, who runs a private equity firm?
What?
I mean, does using public finance negate this image that some people have?
Well, the biggest criticism I'm getting is that my candidacy might be similar to Linda McMahon's, where she was self-financing. So I would actually think it would help me if people realized I was taking public financing if I made that decision.
But by basically holding your bets, you're saying you plan to qualify and make the decision later. How does that work in terms of someone who has substantial resources like you do? I mean, can you no longer buy yourself a campaign bus to explore around town, because that would be using your own money? I mean, a man could, and a woman for that matter, can spend their own money. So how does that?
Well, not if you're taking public financing, you can't.
So
last time you all saw that when it was clear to the legislature that the Democrat candidate was taking the public financing, and I wasn't, they changed the rules of the game and they doubled the grant.
They doubled the grant because
So
they
I
thought you would
don't want
spend a lot
people
of money. Right.
messing around with changing the rules in the middle of the game this time.
I see.
Well, the
They
courts
changed-
also
well,
changed,
well.
as you well know, the courts actually changed the rules as well.
Right.
But is,
They didn't change the rules. They said what the legislature had done was illegal. That's what they said.
Well, the
Or
legislature
unconstitutional.
sort of changed the rules again, and now we can see a little more work between candidates and supporters who are trying to elect them, raise money, and then I guess they have to part ways when they spend money. I'm just wondering, what's your sense of how outside money is going to be playing a role in this year's election? Because the argument from the Democrats was after Citizens United, you know, there has to be this means for people to respond to outside money coming into Connecticut and trying to influence elections. I mean, do you think we're going to see a lot of outside spending in 2014?
Well, this really isn't anything new. Outside money's been coming to elections in Connecticut for a long time. The RGA and the DGA spend money in government cycles. They have been for decades. Last time, and I don't know if you remember the ads for the Democratic Governors Association attacking me personally, are pretty vicious ads. So outside money comes in, and I'm not sure what it's helps or hurts, but it's a fact of life.
But long before they did that, your Republican opponent did it. I mean, he really broke the ground and showed the Democrats how to go in terms of attack ads against you.
Yeah, that wasn't outside money though.
No, that was public money.
Yes, public money, yes.
When would you start your fundraising? If you are serious about public financing, you have to have fundraisers. When are you gonna start?
Today.
Today?
Have you filed?
What, are you gonna ask the people in the back of the room to give you money?
I'm locking the door, nobody's getting out of here. Qualifying contribution.
Are you gonna
You're free to give, Keating,
anytime you want.
Filing
Tom, are you
today.
gonna limit yourself to the $250, the $100 max that would be good for qualifying, or are you gonna do what candidates are allowed to do in exploratory, and you can accept up to the $375 and have some apply and some not? What's
We'll accept up to the $375.
Are you at all concerned about standing out in this race without the resources to spread your message as you have in previous races?
Not at all. I think with the same amount of money and my message, I'm gonna win if I get in the race.
Well, you've already spent a lot of money and your name recognition is still quite high, so you really don't have to this time. Isn't that what you're thinking? I mean, you must have done some research of some kind on your own already, even if it's just going around and people know who you are. Am I right?
Yeah, but that's not the reason for my statement here. I think my message, and just as importantly, Governor Malloy's record will mean if we have the same amount of money and I get in this race, I'll win.
What do you think of the Republican field? What do you think your opponents in the possible upcoming?
Well, I think it's the fact that so many have jumped in is indicative of the people's perception of Governor Malloy's shameful record and his being vulnerable. So that's a good sign. I also think that the candidates who've gotten in have excellent records and experience. So I welcome it.
So I guess the argument will be, as it is always in these things, sort of who's the best Republican to beat Malloy, because you all seem to be outlining the same sorts of critiques, and I'm just wondering if that's, and what makes you think you're the best Republican for the job?
Well, I have a very different experience from the other candidates. I come from a different background. I'm an outsider. I think that what needs to happen here is somebody needs to come in who's not part of the Capitol, not part of not a career politician, not somebody who's been part of the system, and clean up this mess and show people a new direction, a new way of running the government, an ethical standard that hasn't ever existed, certainly in recent decades at the Capitol. And I don't think that the other candidates, because they're part of the system, are going to be able to do that.
How much of your messaging in the coming months is going to be focused on pointing out or distinguishing between yourself and the other Republicans, and are you going to go after them aggressively